Good evening for episode number 14 for Ask Grit. Today we have Tony from our Colombo office. Welcome, Tony.
Yes, hi everyone. How are you doing all? And I'm great to be a part of the show. How's it going, Melbourne?
As always, we'll be discussing the questions which were asked by our clients and audience on a particular topic on property investment, property management, property development, where we answer them for you in this forum so that it will add some value to you and it will be more educational for you. Tony, what have you got this week?
Well, I have some very interesting questions. Some of them are very common that maybe you may have gone through them many times in the past. However, we have seen some tremendous news about some strong capital gain predictions from now on to the next, for the next 4 quarters to come, as a whole in the property market in Australia. So, Navin, would you like to sort of elaborate a little bit on it?
Sure. So, as a market update, the market is extremely hot at the moment. It's gone crazy. In fact, to put it into perspective, if you look at the value of all the houses in Australia, it is at $7.8 trillion right now, which is probably the highest which we have ever seen. And all the top banks, all the top economics are predicting 7 to 20% growth in the next 12 to 18 months. So that's where we're at the moment. In a nutshell, the market is very, very hot. And I think it will continue to be. Some of the reasons for that is the government stimulus, which was offered for first home buyers and investors alike in the local market, that has really driven this. And extremely low interest rates. You can borrow, the money is very cheap. If you're a local, you can borrow at about 2.5%, which is probably all-time low. The cash rate as at now is about 0.1% by the Reserve Bank. So the fundamentals are such that the market has to go up, and that is what it's doing right now.
Brilliant, brilliant. So just to start up with the question number one, as a foreigner, Nabil, can I get any grants from the Australian government at this very moment in time in the market?
The short answer is no. There were lots of grants which was offered during the pandemic for the locals, the citizens and the PR holders, but there's nothing which was offered for the foreigners from the government. So the answer is no.
All right. Okay. So the question number two, as a foreign investor, when I invest in Australian properties, do I get any benefits for PR?
That's a very common question. Again, the answer is no. There is no direct mapping between a property and a permanent residency. However, when you go down skill migration, if you're applying from ACT or from Canberra, you get 5 points when you invest in a property over $300,000. So, you can either migrate through the skill migration scheme or the business migration scheme. Those are the only two streams which are available. So you have to have those relevant points, and the property will definitely help because it shows that you have an interest in the country, but there's no direct mapping between a property and a PR.
Fine, sounds good. So moving on to the next one, apart from the property price, what are the other charges involved for a foreigner as you acquire a property?
Yeah, that's a great question. So in terms of as a foreigner, you have to pay the stamp duty. Stamp duty is an additional charge apart from the property price. You also have to pay the solicitor fees or the conveyance fees to who takes care of on your behalf. And also, if you're going for a loan, there will be some bank fees or the lender's fees which will be involved. Those are the additional charges involved in the purchase price, apart from the purchase price on the transaction. On top of that, you also have outgoings that is after you purchase the property, such as the rental management fees and so forth.
Yeah. So if can you elaborate a little bit on the post handover factor? Like, okay, after the completion of the property, what are the other charges that normally involves?
Yeah. So if you list them down, one is if you rent it out as an investor, you have the property management fees. Then you do have the insurance fees, where you have to insure the property. Then you have council fees, which every landlord has to pay. And that fee will differ from anywhere between $800 to $1,800 based on the location of the property. Then you also have water rates. What I mean by water rates is water usage is paid by the tenant always, but water rate is something called sewage fees and parks fees, where every landlord has to contribute towards the local water authority. If it is an apartment, there is a fee called owner's corporation, which is equivalent to body corporation or condominium fee, what you call it. So that will depend on project to project. But if it's a house and land, this fee will not be involved because you're buying a piece of land and constructing on it.
Got it. Got it. Okay. Now I have a client asking that I have my son studying at University of Melbourne and the daughter studying in Canberra. So where do you think I should invest? Number one, and on that event, what benefits do I get by doing so?
I think he should invest in both. Yeah, no, out of jokes. So son in Canberra, son in Melbourne, daughter in Canberra. Yeah, it really depends if he wants to buy one property. Canberra, the benefits are your stamp duty is very low. You're paying only about 2.5% as opposed to 13% as a foreigner in Melbourne or Sydney. So you have a very strong benefit in Canberra in that sense. The rental returns in Canberra is high. You're looking at 6 to 7% per annum, as opposed to Melbourne, 4.5 to 5%. In terms of capital appreciation, Melbourne population growth is much higher than Canberra. So you can expect much higher capital appreciation in Melbourne. So depending on the objectives of the investor, he can choose to invest in Canberra or Melbourne. If you're looking at long-term capital appreciation, definitely Melbourne. If you're looking at short-term rental return as well as a lower price point, go with Canberra.
All right, good stuff. So the next one is what approvals are we looking at, as a foreigner when you get your hands in initially in a property in Australia?
Yeah, there's only one approval which is required. It's called Foreign Investment Review Board, or FIRB. This is the government, Australian government. It's part of the government. As a foreigner, when you're buying a property, you have to get the approval from this authority, which is called FIRB. As long as the property is brand new, this approval will be granted. There is a fee for that, which is $6,350 for properties less than $1 million. Based on the property value, it goes up in brackets. But typically, most of the properties are below $1 million, which most investors are investing on. If it's 1 million to 2 million, you're looking at about $12,500. 2 to 3, it will go up to about 24,000 and so forth. But that's the only approval which is required.
Brilliant, brilliant. Now, the next one is about the borrowings as a foreigner. So my client says, I have never heard of lenders letting you borrow for someone overseas. So how is the process possible?
Yeah, that's a fair question, because lenders are letting the foreigners borrow because they have the security of the property. They let you borrow 60% by showing your income in wherever the country they are in. But from the lender's point of view, they have the security on them. And the chances are that from a risk point of view from the lender, the chances are that the property will never, ever, it has never, ever gone down by 40% for them to lose money. So if you look at the worst case, if the investor does not pay the mortgage, they'll give a couple of warnings and then they can simply take over the property, auction it, and recover their money very easily. So I totally understand most countries don't do it for foreigners, but I mean, Australia does it. They have a very strict process in lending. At the same time, they're on top of it all the time. They're only borrowing 60%, which they can recover at any given point of time.
Yeah, got you, loud and clear. So what is the next one? What is my exit strategy if I were to invest in a property in Australia?
Yeah, exit strategy is simply you sell the property. You might have a mortgage, you might not have a mortgage. You simply exit by selling the property and then setting off the mortgage if you do have one, and then rest is yours as a profit. So you might get a capital gain, and then you can reinvest that on another property. But the easiest exit strategy is to sell the property. It's very straightforward, and I mean, you're looking at a settlement time frame of 2 to 3 months by the time you put it to the market.
Yeah, wonderful.
And
so
getting repatriated the money back is not going to be an issue. It's a simple online transfer to wherever they want the money repatriated to, if that is required.
fine. So if it were to be a typical investor now, like you would advise for him to be sleeping on the investment for 5 to 6 years minimum, or a little bit less than that, even more?
Yeah, 5 to 6 years at a minimum. More the better. The reason I say that is, say you keep the property for 6 years, you'll build up a heavy amount of equity on the property, where you can use that to your leverage by using that as a deposit for your next property and so forth. So the longer you can keep the property is better.
Excellent, makes sense. So now that's about the questions that I have for you for today. And
I think there's a few more online. One guy is asking, my son is in Brisbane. Where would you recommend us to invest in? Yeah, so in Brisbane, if you're looking at total investment potential, southeast of Queensland is where the developments are happening. So we tend to really promote areas where infrastructure developments are happening, because that's where the growth is going to happen. If the government is going to spend money on railway tracks, underground train stations, shopping centers, schools, there's going to be more population growth and hence the appreciation. So southeast of Queensland, which is between Brisbane, CBD and Gold Coast, is the place to invest if you're an investor. If you're looking at buying something for your son close to a uni, if they are in a uni in the city, then there'll be a lot of apartments. But apartments are really good if it's for convenience. If you're looking at pure investment, go with house and land towards southeast Queensland. There's one more. You mentioned about Canberra. Why is the stamp duty so low in Canberra? Yes, it is low because the reason is Canberra land is always leasehold. It's a 99-year lease, not only for foreigners, but also for the locals. And the reason for that is Canberra is a small city compared to Melbourne or Sydney. From north to south of Canberra, you can travel within about 35-40 minutes. And there's a scarcity of land. So government owns everything, and it's a 99-year lease, whether it's for a homeowner, investor, a land developer, whoever it is, it's the same rule. And the stamp duty for locals is tax deductible too, which is another benefit. So because of that, the stamp duty is low. It's about 2.1% for locals and 3% for foreigners. So that's the reason. What is the best property type to invest? Is it an apartment? If you're a pure investor, go with house and land. Land is what appreciates, building depreciates. So I would advise you to go with house and land if you're an investor, unless you're looking at a owner-occupier scenario where you want to get your kids to live in the property, or for you to live in the property close proximity of kids or schools or universities or whatnot. So I would strongly suggest you to go with house and land. I think that's pretty much it, Tony. Short and sharp, which is how we like it.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was very informative. Some of the things about Canberra and all that. So, yeah. So,
Excellent.
anyone?
So, yeah, if anyone has any other questions, please, I mean, you can search us very easily. You can search us on the website, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. We're everywhere. So hook us up and send in your questions. We are more than happy to get back to you. Until next week, goodbye and be safe.